It appears the government is ditching at least one of its fiscal guardrails, and last fall you called those guardrails helpful. Do you find them leaving them? Do you find the government ditching them unhelpful?
Well, Jude, look, I am a fan of the fiscal guardrails. But we're all going to get the fiscal update next Monday, and we'll read it with interest. I expect you will too. And between Monday and our next projection, which comes out January 28th or 9th, 29th, we will, whatever measures are in there, we'll take those on board. We'll build those into the projection. So, look, I'm not really going to. Let's see the whole fiscal update in its totality, and we'll do the assessment. We'll discuss it in January.
Good morning. How much of this half-point cut, or let me rephrase that, sorry. How much was the threat of President-elect Trump's 25% tariff? How big a role did that play in making a half-point cut, and perhaps the Bank of Canada wanted to take out some insurance in the event this happened before the January 29th decision?
You saw in the press release, we did underline that the threat of new tariffs on Canadian exports, particularly at the level that's been suggested, that is a major new source of uncertainty. But the reality is, we don't know if those tariffs are going to be implemented. We don't know if exemptions are going to be agreed on some parts. We don't know what level of tariffs. We don't know if Canada will take retaliatory measures. All those things, if you want to work through the economic consequences, all those things are very important for determining what this means for the Canadian economy. We can't run policy on something that might happen. We have highlighted that it is a major uncertainty, and certainly if you're a business considering making an investment decision, even that the fact that things are uncertain, that will probably hold back your decisions until there's some more clarity. So it is probably already having some effect on the data, but really the decision we took today reflects what we see in the data, and if there is a big change, we're going to have to take that on board. Look, there's no question that if these tariffs were to move forward at the level suggested, it would be highly disruptive to the Canadian economy. It would also be very disruptive for the U.S. economy. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but we did highlight it as a risk.
Okay, next I'm going to call on Jordan Gowling from the Financial Post, please.
Morning. Former Bank of Canada Governor Stephen Poloz made some comments last week. He said that population growth has masked underlying weakness in the economy and that we're in a recession. What's your response to the comments made by your predecessor?
What's my response? Well, let me say, how do we see it? I'll let people decide what adjective they want to put on it, but the traditional definition of a recession is at least two negative quarters of growth in a row. The Canadian economy is growing. Third quarter growth was 1%. It's not growing very quickly, but it is growing. Yes, as Stephen Poloz pointed out, if you look at things on a per capita basis, we have seen a number of negative quarters. And that really reflects the fact, yes, we are in excess supply. The economy has been soft. I think when you look at over the last couple of years, we've lowered inflation from 8.1% to 2%. And if you just look at the labor market, yes, the unemployment rate has gone up, but we have not seen widespread layoffs. We have not seen, people, widespread job losses as you would typically see in a recession. So, look, we needed to slow the economy. We needed weak growth to take the steam out of inflation. That has worked, but we haven't created widespread job losses as you would typically see in a recession.
From Bloomberg, please.
Hi, Governor. How much do you worry about Canadian dollar weakness leading to a surge in inflation down the line, or do you welcome a weaker loonie as a counterbalance to the potential U.S. tariffs and any retaliation from Canada?
Well, I need to just begin by reminding everybody that we actually don't forecast the Canadian dollar. When we run our forecast, we take whatever the current level is, and we don't target the exchange rate. We target inflation, and in fact, the flexible exchange rate is a key part of the framework. It's what allows us to run monetary policy geared to the needs of the Canadian economy. So if you go back to the last monetary policy report in October, the Canadian dollar was sitting around 73 cents. This morning it's a little over, it's between 70.5 and 71 this morning. So yes, it is weaker, a little more than 2 cents weaker. And so what is driving that depreciation? Well, I think most of that depreciation in the Canadian dollar is really an appreciation in the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar has been strong against pretty much every other currency. If you look at the Canadian dollar against other crosses relative to major currencies other than the U.S. dollar, it's actually very little changed. The fact that the Canadian dollar is weaker, as you said, that is actually one of the channels through which monetary policy works. A lower Canadian dollar makes Canadian exports more competitive in the U.S., and so that will add demand to the Canadian economy. It also makes imported goods more expensive, so that can also have some impact on inflation. So those are both things that we'll need to take into account in the conduct of monetary policy. Until recently, the Canadian dollar has actually been remarkably stable. We have seen some depreciation. That is something we'll have to factor in.